to use.
Right.
Yeah,
and then Raymond has to draw one card.
Hello and welcome back to the European Championships 2018. I'm still here with Matt Bell.
Hey guys, how you doing today?
We're here in round 3. So we've got a pretty interesting matchup.
Yes, we have Youri Lansman, and he's facing off against Adam Hájek from Slovakia. He is the Slovakian national champion, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And an interesting statistic about Adam is that he was actually undefeated at his national championships. Now, that's a pretty big feat to accomplish. He did have a couple of draws, but in terms of losing...
Hey, a draw is not a loss.
There's no losing involved.
You still get a point.
Yeah, he got points in every single round that he played. He's against Youri Lansman from the Netherlands, who, interestingly, I've got him down as playing Paleozoic frogs at YCS Bochum. So that's
fun fact about that. He's also playing that here today.
Oh, well, there you go. So his win rate for the past season, as with all of the win rates we're giving out, is 61%. Still really strong win rate.
And how many tournaments has he played?
He's played in 7. So that's a pretty good
61
number
over 7,
of,
yeah.
it's a good number of regionals. And as for Adam, we see that he has a 77% win ratio, but over a smaller amount of tournaments, just 6 tournaments. And actually, most of them were in the Czech Republic, so that's quite interesting. He's got 3 regionals in Prague.
And also YCS Prague on the list as well.
Yeah, one of the YCS Pragues. So
Adam is going to be piloting the Trickstar deck. Trickstar Sky Striker, my apologies, from the looks of it. Main deck in Cypher Gamma, so it'll be interesting to see.
I was just going to say, anything particularly interesting? The first thing I noticed was the Gamma.
Yeah, Gamma is probably the most interesting tech here. The rest of it's sort of pretty standard taking a look. There's not really anything that stands out to me as extremely odd. We do see the Mech Knights in the side deck though, so that could be definitely interesting going into games 2 and 3.
And the more interesting of the 2 decks is obviously Youri's. He's playing Paleozoic Frogs, which is a complete outsider in this meta, or at least as far as results-driven kind of stuff is concerned.
He's playing Super Team Buddy Force Unite. He's playing 2 copies of that. I love this card.
What does it do? Tell us, Matt.
So it's a trap card that when you activate, you can target a monster on the field, and then you can special summon a monster from your hand or graveyard with the same type as that monster.
Okay.
But if the Super Buddy Force is destroyed, you can set another one from your deck.
Okay.
So it's very good against spell and trap removal, and it's generally very good if you're playing a single type deck, just putting up monsters essentially, without things like Call of the Haunted jamming your spell and trap zones. It's super cool card.
So it's just a normal trap.
I love playing this in with Lilith in Lair of Darkness type builds, because you get a lot of access to fiends, and you can just then tribute it away, bring it back because you've got Tour Guide, and you go, oh yeah, Super Buddy Force, target my...
So I guess in the kind of theme-based decks, that must be really strong.
It's definitely one to consider. I mean, one of the problems is it's a trap card, so it's pretty slow for trying to do your combo.
Yeah.
When you can see things like Yoki don't need to wait before they can beat you, so it's kind of
something
something
that protection though. It's got a kind of inherent protection.
Yeah, it gives it basically as a deterrent from your opponent destroying it. That's just kind of a nice icing on the top. If you're going to play something that you want to hard punish your opponent for destroying it, you're going to play Waking the Dragon and then get yourself out the Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon strat, the extra deck, or Notoria Exo.
I was going to say, can we have a reminder exactly what Waking the Dragon does? So it's a similar kind of thing that it's a trap card?
Yeah, it's if it's destroyed or banished by your opponent, you get to special summon a monster from your deck or extra deck, I believe.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you're just going for the ones that say your opponent can't play Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, so like the Ultimate Falcon.
Yeah, it's very few things in the format that can beat it because it's unaffected by absolutely everything, and it's gigantic.
Yeah, I remember just a couple of formats ago, probably even more. Thomas will definitely remember this. So, Thomas, while you're listening, remind us when this happened. There was a Burning Abyss type thing that people were using. There's a spell card where you could upgrade Dante into something or something like that.
Oh, what, the rank up magic?
Yeah, it was one of the rank.
Force.
Yeah, it was one of the rank up magics where you could turn something in Burning Abyss into Ultimate Falcon.
No, it was the. I don't remember the card, but I do remember.
I remember the card. I just can't remember the name. I bet Tom is screaming it inside, so he's going to be able to tell us in a few seconds. In this particular matchup, what are you thinking is going to be able to come out ahead?
Well, Yuri's obviously practiced this matchup extremely coming into this tournament. He's going to be very prepared for this Sky Striker Trickstar. The question is, just does his deck get there? We've seen Paleozoics falling short. And you've got new threats to worry about, like the topological Trispina, for example, being able to...
that would be very dangerous.
Sweep out. But then again, there's a lot of interaction coming from Paleozoic frogs.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of disruption to stop your opponent getting there if they're depending on those combos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once you start getting into the flow of the game, you're pretty good. But there is, again, these big, huge blowout cards like Trispina, and you are playing trap cards, so you are waiting until turn 3 if you're starting second.
Yeah, exactly. And do we see anything else? So he has got 3. So Adam Hájek is playing 3 copies of Twin Twisters in the side deck. Sorry. So that's
definitely like to see it coming into play. But again, this is what this Team Super Buddy Force Unite kind of. Yeah. You can catch your opponent off guard with it. I mean, it's not massively impactful, but at the same time, it just, even if your opponent uses it, you then still have a resource to use in your following turn, and that can set up more swap frog shenanigans. Yeah, and something like Twin Twisters, where you are having to give up a card. It's not necessarily the worst thing to give up in the world. It's just 1 card, but generally, I think that you feel like Twin Twisters is going to make a big impact in the matchups where you bring it in. So if you hit something like Buddy Force Unite, skipping words there, then you're able to, they can kind of recover from a situation where you're expecting them to feel much worse about it. Yeah, you got to consider that 2-card combos nowadays, you kind of expect them to somehow turn into Firewall Dragon or something big. So investing 2 cards and then not getting a big payoff to it can be pretty huge depending on the rest of your hand, because you're expected to be holding at least a hand trap to interact with the opponent to stop them setting up. Yeah, and as with most monsters nowadays, which is essentially what Buddy Force Unite gets you to, they're going to pay double for themselves, especially something like Swap Frog. Yeah, you're going to be looking at Swap Frog, you've got like Totally Awesomes and stuff like this. Yeah, exactly. So that isn't just kind of 1 trap card. It's going to be seen as quite a big advantage. I really like this card. I think it's definitely worth having getting a playset in your collection just in case. Yeah. The format ever slows down to a point, because it's extremely strong and it's very sticky. Your opponent's they're not going to be committing removal to it. Yeah, I think while Yu-Gi-Oh is kind of archetypal, which it has been for many years now, it's going to, it's always going to be quite a good card in slower formats, or just in slower decks. Yeah. If there may be an opportunity that shows up, which where it becomes huge, but we'll get to see. Maybe it doesn't even come to play in this match. Now we spent so much time talking about it. I mean, what a card to talk about! It's got an awesome name and it's got Ojamas on it. Who doesn't like cards with Ojamas on it? I do like Ojamas. Okay. Well, at least there's one. So, shall we get over to Ollie and Tom, and they can start walking you through the match? Yeah, let's take it on over to our commentators for this round.
Hello guys, we're almost ready to get the game started. There are some corrections in order because we talked to the players, and Adam Hájek, while he won the Slovakian Nationals, is actually from the Czech Republic, which I find surprising considering that the first time we went to YCS Prague there were like 40 players from the Czech Republic there. So you wouldn't expect the Czech Nationals to be super big and somebody from the Czech Republic being like, I need to go to another country because it's easier to win there.
Or maybe he wanted to go to another country to have a harder competition. I know that some players choose to enter German nationals because they want to go and play in the biggest nationals that they can get to.
That is also a factor, yeah. That worked out well for some of them, yeah. So that's the one thing. And Youri Lansman, of course, is from Belgium. I'm not exactly sure if we mentioned the country before because we might have accidentally said he's from the Netherlands. And I know that Belgian players take some offense to that. So corrections are in order. Youri, you are from Belgium and we're happy to have you. I know that you yesterday had a very good night because of that football match. Guys, we're going to take a quick look before these guys are ready to get their game on and look at the country breakdown for the tournament. This is how the numbers are falling into place for the largest ever European Championship of all time. 600 players from Germany, considering that we have 1,600 players in the field. That's not even 50%. Still a lot of players, of course, but just look at those numbers. That's quite something. And then extremely surprisingly, in my personal opinion, not trying to take anything away from the UK, but 194 players making the trip. We've never seen that many UK players come to an international event, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're correct there, and I think that's a reflection of the UK scene at the moment. We've had incredibly good attendance across all layers of tournaments. We get lots of players at locals at the moment. Our regionals have been very successful, and just 2 weeks ago we had our largest ever national championships.
Right.
So off the back of that, lots of players are really keen to get involved in these larger tier 2 events. So we're all traveling out here to see how we can compete on the European scale.
Yeah, traditionally you expect some countries like the Netherlands, for example, putting up huge numbers in Germany. Of course, Berlin is on the other side of the country, so the guys from the Netherlands have to drive a little bit longer before they can get here. Italy, of course, very, very big nation, but also not that cheap for them to get to Berlin because it's in the northeastern part of Germany, to be precise. Well, on the other hand, credit where credit is due to the French players, because for them, of course, also a long trip, but 150 players is not a bad number for France. Because their market hasn't been quite with the same development as the UK. Like, the UK is definitely the big story here. If you look at those numbers, 194 is almost unheard of. Of course, there were more guys from the UK in Dublin, for example, but that was right around the corner almost. So many coming to mainland Europe is something new.
I think the exciting thing there will be seeing how these numbers progress as the weekend goes on, because whilst there are a lot of German players, some of them may have been locals that only make a short journey. They may not be the most competitive.
Oh, they only played in those last chance qualifiers yesterday and secured their ticket for the event in the very last minute.
But at Tier 2 events, these larger events, we always see the Greek players rising up from being initially other into being an absolute powerhouse for day 2 in the top cut.
And the same can often be said about the Italians. And similar things can be said about certain decks. It's a bit too early to tell what's going to be happening this weekend, but this is the initial metagame breakdown at the start of the tournament. Sky Striker Trickstar, not surprising, #1 deck in the field. And then we have a very even spread of decks in the next few positions. A lot more even than we usually have, which tells us that the metagame seems to be quite healthy, quite diverse.
Although we do have an interesting note here that our 4th place deck, the Sky Striker Trickstar Mech Knight, was previously considered perhaps to be only a tech version of the Sky Striker Trickstar deck, but entered here as a separate deck. So we really do see the 2 different Sky Striker Trickstar variants taking an absolute lion's share of the entry there.
Right.
And again, other.
And again, other. Yeah, not to be swept under the rug. All right, guys, with that, we're ready to get our game on in our round 3 feature match. So let's take you to the table where Adam Hájek and Youri Lansman are ready to see who's going to come out successful here. All right. Adam Hájek on the left, Youri Lansman on the right. And as always, we're just waiting for another second for the cards to load in, so we know what opening 5 they have. Who really wants to go first? Is Paleozoic Frogs one of those decks that doesn't mind too much if they go second?
Paleozoic Frog has a huge power advantage if they're able to play first. Naturally, the deck is full of trap cards. Trap cards don't do anything until they've been set.
All right.
So
both of these guys are really hoping that the odds are in their favor when they did roll the die.
But it appears that Hájek will have won the die roll here and chooses to go first, starting off with his light stage. He already has 2 copies of Candina in hand, so he's likely to take a Licorice here. Has the Engage and a Gamma in his hand, but with hand traps not being present in Yuri's hand, the Gamma isn't going to be doing a lot here.
How much? Yeah, that's like the only way he can stop his opponent from doing something, right? There's not that much action in terms of hand traps here.
No, I don't know if Youri is even playing hand traps. Often the Paleozoic builds will be using Card of Demise, so they don't have any hand traps in the deck at all. See a fairly strong start for Adam Hájek here. Has the Hornet Drones and the Candina, typically a 2-card combo that gets you well engaged on both sides of the deck.
Yeah, and in terms of rating that opening, what would you say on a scale from 1 to 10? What is that?
Well, Sky Striker Trickstar really doesn't get up to the higher numbers. The openings that they can put out aren't anything special. It's the consistency with which they do a little bit. And the toolboxing of Engage and the power play comes much later through Scapegoat. So you wouldn't ever see a 10 out of 10 opening from a Trickstar player.
Right.
But you'll reliably see a 5 out of 10 that can just kind of fog your opponent out of making any powerful plays and flip up a Scapegoat to turn the tide further down the line.
So the ceiling is a little bit lower, but at the same time the bottom is a little bit higher.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. So it's probably the deck of choice for people that value consistency higher than those huge blowout turns that you can have.
And it's also a very strong choice for newer players getting into the game because you don't have the huge decision trees that you'd have with a deck like Pendulum, where there's a lot of choices. A card like Electromite gets you access to any card in your deck. Candina, there's only 3 cards that you're choosing between, so...
Right. Not that hard to learn. All right, it looks like Youri it's got a bit of a slow start here, but that's also kind of normal for this archetype, right?
Yes, he's choosing to set his cards before he starts making play.
Right. Good way to play around that.
Play around the reincarnation.
That all-important combo. It's one of those cards where players are saying it's almost the perfect format if it weren't for 2 cards. And very often those 2 cards are Firewall Dragon, or at least the current iteration of Firewall Dragon. Some players say it would be fine if it's had like a once per turn or something like that, like an additional condition.
Yeah, Firewall Dragon is a card that in many ways is too powerful for its own good and may well see its way to being banned for not having sufficient restrictions in the card text.
We should have like a little disclaimer when we say something like that. It's like, we're not official Konami representatives. This is not something telegraphing the next limited and forbidden card list. If Matt says the same thing, it's different. Because Matt, of course, is always giving you information about the next limited and restricted list up front. He's going to be very happy to hear that. I can see him shake his head from the other side of the stage. All right, so Youri just going for the defensive approach. Walling his opponent after 5 face-down cards here. And does his opponent does know that he's playing Paleozoic because he did see a frog, right?
Yes, yeah, we saw the Swap Frog being summoned, send the Ronin Totem, and then using the cost of its effect, returning itself to the hand just to protect itself for next turn. But of course being taken out by the reincarnation there.
So when it returns, it's basically like the frog is out of the bag, with the bag being the graveyard in this time. Yeah, we got puns for days here.
We need to at least wait until we have a rescue cat on the stream before we bring that one up again.
Yeah, we're flexible. We're flexible like that.
You see Adam Hájek reading the banished Super Team Buddy Force Unite.
All right.
And here he has to run the gauntlet. There are 5 mystery cards.
Yeah. Are you feeling lucky today?
Any one of them could be a Mirror Force.
Yeah, I always find that very daunting, that situation where you're like, and especially no matter what you hit, you feel like it could have been better. Is there something like if you hit this card, you're going to be like, okay, it doesn't get any better than that?
Well, a lot of the cards are 3 of in the Paleozoic deck, so even if you've hit one, that doesn't guarantee that there isn't another copy of the same card hiding somewhere.
Right. So yeah, not the best odds, I guess.
One of the spells and traps being locked down by the effective light stage, and then Phoenix coming out to randomly snipe one.
And that light stage is putting up so much work for that Sky Striker Trickstar deck. It might be in competition for the best field spell ever. At least I would say top 10 easily, and maybe even top 3 or top 5 or something like that.
Well, from what we see with field spells being released recently, to be truly like top tier as a field spell, you have to have an effect that replaces itself when you play it. And searching for a Trickstar monster fills that gap perfectly. We see other field spells like Union Hanger or Magical Meltdown being very popular because they play themselves and they get a new card. And they all have an additional effect tacked on to just get some further value when they stay on the field as well.
A little while ago, something like a Dragon Ravine was like the best possible field spell, and it just seems like this new generation of field spell is going even further, like raising the bar even higher than before. Yeah,
these field spells no longer having the same cost that we'd associate with discarding a card for Dragon Ravine.
Right. So Paleozoic usually tends to hang in there very long, if I remember correctly. At least that was one of the things that Joshua Schmidt said about the deck when he was playing it. He said you need to have patience, but you can hang in for a very, very long time. And especially if you're a very good player who knows your his or her way around the best possible plays and all of the plays that your opponent can make, you can find yourself, or you can put yourself into situations where you can easily gain the upper hand.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of the deck. And often with traps that interact with the battle phase, if we just have a look at what Youri is playing here, we don't see any Mirror Forces, but Rivalry and Gozen Match can both effectively destroy all but one monster in a large resolved board.
I would also say that's pretty typical. Like, we have featured Youri a couple of times. There was a little bit of trivia going on with the Belgian and the Dutch duelists yesterday. They crunched the numbers and tried to find out who has had the most feature matches and who has had the best win record in a feature match. And Youri was one of the guys who had quite a couple of feature matches, but not one of the best win records. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. It's just that very, very often he's playing a creative deck. That is why we feature him, because we always want to show off the interesting decks, not like what everybody else is playing. He's very often one of those guys that is playing one of those decks, and quite often, unfortunately for him, in the feature match, it didn't work out the way he wanted it to. Like, he's putting up decent records in the tournament overall, but when we have him in the feature match, for some reason, it's not always working out well for him.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We've just seen one of the most interesting tech cards in his deck there, the Super Team Buddy Force Unite, get destroyed, but he's only playing 2 copies of it, so when the first one was banished by the effect of Reincarnation, he isn't able to use that Engrave effect to get another copy, which is one of the main redeeming features in the metagame right now, full of back row destruction.
Right. That's probably going to hurt. And Youri doesn't look like he's in a great position here. We can check out his field again. He's got Marella, Impermanence, and Reckless Greed. And yeah, one of them, Marella, just being activated. I can bring that up for you guys, in case you haven't seen the Paleozoic monsters that often.
I think that was a second copy of Marella sent for the effect there.
Right.
Seems an odd moment to have activated that, sort of for no great effect at this point.
Yeah, maybe he's trying to bait something or prepare something here, but it seems like he's really standing with his back against the wall with just 2,500 life points left. And then, of course, there's the burn damage and the light stage that is just increasing that burn damage even further. Yeah, I think he just had to... He wanted to have another monster to block attacks in the battle phase. Is that possible?
It seems that way, and I'm surprised that the Reincarnation in the grave wasn't used in response to the activation of Reckless Greed to prevent that Paleozoic from being summoned, but it seems that that's enough.
Yeah, either way, that doesn't seem to make the difference. Hájek fighting through, taking away the last few life points for Youri Lansman, who couldn't, like, sport a strong defense in that first game. But he needs to be prepared for this deck. I mean, it's not like something that is coming out of left field, some of the other rogue decks in the tournament. If he wants to do well this weekend, he needs to do well against Sky Striker Trickstar. So what went wrong in that first game for him?
Well, he starts at a disadvantage if he loses the die roll, but you have to be able to play through losing some die rolls. So there was a further issue with losing his Swap Frog to the Reincarnation. He didn't have the second water that he needed to activate it again, but even without that second water monster, he would rather have been in a position where he'd keep hold of it. The Super Team Buddy Force being lost to the Trickstar Reincarnation, preventing the effect to get more cards, but he was just losing his advantage without ever being able to set up himself.
Right. So basically, Hájek had all the answers, sometimes without even knowing 100% that he had all the answers. It just happened that way. It just turned out that way. And now the big question is, what's going to be sided in? It looked to me like Reckless Greed was being removed from the main deck. And he went for some other cards, Youri Lansman, to put in there.
So in the side deck for Youri, we see Heavy Storm Duster. Those are maybe coming in for because he is able to play first. He has 3 Night Beams. Those typically coming in against the Trickstar Sky Striker matchup when playing second, so I doubt we'll see them for this game. Emergency provisions, I can only assume, is for timeout procedure. Wiretap might be an interesting one that we could see.
We haven't seen
here.
that card in a while.
And the magic deflectors, of course, turning off all of the field spell and quick play spells in the Sky Striker deck.
So he does come prepared for this.
On the other side, for Hájek, there is Twin Twisters. Those will almost certainly be going in. Also have to give compliments to Adam Hájek. I think this is the neatest handwriting on a deck list I have ever seen in my life. At first I thought it was printed, but no,
Yeah.
it's all beautifully handwritten.
That is true. That is true.
He has Infinite Impermanence. Maybe worthwhile bringing that in to negate Swap Frog on summon. Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode. Of course, we all saw from the UK Nationals is the bane of 3 toads, but in Constructed we are only likely to see 1, so I don't think that will be making an appearance. Really just Twin Twisters, I think, are the key part in the side deck for Adam Hájek.
What do you think about the Mind Crush? It's Paleozoic doesn't search that many cards, right?
For the most part, Paleozoic isn't big on searching. Mind Crush could be worthwhile, but again, you don't want to be siding in trap cards when you're playing second.
Right. All right, let's see how this plays out. We see the hand of Youri Lansman already. Of course, slower start with 3 face downs. And there's a card of demise, 4 face downs and card of demise. Ooh, that is a good opening for him.
The Ash Blossom swoops in.
Ugh, and that is a good answer from Adam Hájek. Well, so now Youri Lansman is left with Canadia, Dinomishus, Infinite Impermanence, and Heavy Storm Duster.
And the Dinomishus isn't going to be doing anything until he can get another card in hand, so that's a dud sat there at the moment.
Right, yeah, his opening would have been a lot better without that Ash Blossom, of course.
Yeah, Youri sat on 3 cards here, and one that will be live once he draws again.
Right. On the other side of the field, we mentioned the consistency of Sky Striker Trickstar, and again, Adam Hájek is putting that to the test. Does have the light stage, but there's an answer from Youri. The Heavy Storm Duster. That's good. That helps him not fall behind too much.
Hájek here can summon a Kagari into the right hand or lower on the screen extra monster zone, putting 2 cards in the same column. No, he chooses to go to the left zone.
Or he might be thinking about it. That's a bit odd. You saw him like place the card and then immediately like put his finger on it again. If he's unlucky, the judge would rule, hey, your finger has like stopped touching the card for a second there, and that means you need to leave it where it is. But that was not what happened. However, he's being met with Infinite Impermanence.
It would certainly have been a big mistake for him to put the Kagari into the left zone there. He would be stuck, unable to summon his Mech Knight Blue Sky. Although with Shizuku in the extra deck, he could of course swap it over to the other zone if he needed to.
Right. So Youri is just like bleeding cards here. He went from 4 face downs to 1 face down with that Canadia putting in some work, acting like a Book of Moon basically, which is what it does.
Yeah, there appears to be some dispute as to whether the effect of the Mech Knight Blue Sky will resolve face down. I understand that it doesn't because it needs to check for cards in the same column as itself, and the game doesn't necessarily identify it being the same card that it was face up if it is no longer a face up monster on the field.
Yeah, and obviously the judge is being asked about that very question right now, and he is ruling that to the players. What I find a tiny bit confusing is that he's not... Oh, he was talking into a microphone? Okay. I wasn't quite sure if, because the players have those headphones that should be noise cancelling. Should be. Hopefully they are going to be.
It's not looking good for Youri here. I think it's just been ruled that the search does resolve even on the face down Mech Knight Blue Sky. I don't see anything really other than a Swap Frog or potentially a very strong card of Demise that's likely to get him out of this position.
Yeah, it's kind of odd because we did mention that Paleozoic is known for hanging in there. Right now, it doesn't look like it's doing just that. That was not... So far, he's not making a very strong case for that particular deck. I mean, we did see it in the past in other coverages that it can do really, really well. But right now, it just left... It looked like you set 4 face downs, and then after one turn, you're down to 1 face down. And that card is actually kind of dead at the moment. So Youri Lansman not in a very good position right now.
No, not ideal. A Swap Frog draw would be absolutely perfect here, but I think we may be seeing the Nightmare Phoenix to take out that last card, and at that point, even a Swap Frog isn't enough anymore.
Right. There it is, the Phoenix. There's the discard. There goes the card that Youri had. And now Youri Lansman is left with absolutely nothing but hope.
I think he drew a Magic Deflector, sets it instantly, but
he knows that this one is over. He just checks his graveyard again, but he cannot even bring any of the Paleozoic monsters back. So this is a tough position to be in. And
he didn't even set his card to the correct zone. If he'd put it in front of the Mech Knight Blue Sky, he could have prevented that Nightfall from hitting the board, but by throwing it into the center zone, Adam Hájek is able to just set his own scapegoat and have access to enough damage to seal the game.
Yeah, that's one of those things you might not think of that in the moment, but then because you're already a little bit thrown off your game after that initial start of the match didn't go your way, and then you mess up another tiny little play, but in the end it makes a difference because he could have seen another turn. Not sure if that would have made the difference, to be honest. We mentioned it, the Swap Frog would have been really strong. But other than that, not much that Youri Lansman could have done.
There were a fair few draws if he was able to hold on to that face-down card until his next turn, because at that point, any level 2 monster that he could combine, he can activate the Deflector at any point, get back a Paleozoic from the grave, normal summon any of the Swap Frogs, Dupe Frogs, or Ronin Totems, and that's straight into Totally Awesome. And from there, it really snowballs towards the Paleozoic player. But we saw some really quite sloppy play there. Is one thing failing to play around Mech Knights against an unknown opponent, but it's quite another failing to play around Mech Knights when you've already seen that your opponent has searched one to their hand.
I was about to say, basically, the reminder is right in front of you. Like, you see the reminder on the board, you're like, oh, wait, this is this one deck where I cannot just place my cards wherever I want. Some would say that there's no deck in the format anymore where you can just place your cards wherever you want, but I think it's even more crucial in terms of Mech Knights.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so guys, we did mention some sloppy play. Let's see what the analysts are going to say. Maybe they find some different words to sell this to you guys. So let's hear it from Luke and Matt.
Thank you, Ollie and Thomas, of course. Yeah, I mean, they summed it up fairly well there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you start off and you get your set 5 pass, and you just saw how the Trickstar deck just tore through the back row.
Yeah.
It just keeps picking cards away while it's just doing stuff that it wants to. Heavy back row decks severely struggling with cards like Nightmare Phoenix becoming very mainstream.
Yeah.
Where you just you destroy a card, while I'm progressing my combo, I'll take another one of your cards. And that was really unfortunate to see. We did see the Youri getting unlucky there in the first game with the reincarnation taking away his Super Buddy Team Force Unite. Sorry, I probably got that name wrong.
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it.
Oh, sweet. I should have more confidence. And we also saw just the way his field got picked apart as well.
Yeah.
Not particularly great. And then
in that game 3, you could see that like there weren't a lot of cards that Adam were having to commit to the field, and Youri was having to like blow away everything to be able to just stop Adam from doing anything, and then he was left with basically nothing. I mean, yeah. I
think Paleozoic Frogs just might be outdated at this point. It was better when you could make multiple Totally Awesomes and you didn't have to worry about extra Monster Zone.
Yeah.
You're also playing into a format which is just where back row, decks playing through back row is really easy.
Yeah.
Maybe not the right call for Youri this weekend, but he was performing quite well. He was 2-0 at that point. Now he just dropped in one game. He's still got every chance to prove us wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just don't believe it would have been my pick for this weekend.
Yeah. Just after the new Master Rule was put in, Paleozoic was huge, and it was one of the first decks I actually tried with the new Master Rule, and this was obviously before Mistar Boy. but it was so low on the list of decks that I felt was going to work with the new Master Rule. And you know, some people made it work now with Mistar Boy, but yeah, it's not up to the scratch that Sky Striker Trickstar seems to be.
Yeah, I mean, if you are winning the die roll, going for a setting 5, doing some shenanigans, or doing some shenanigans with Swap Frog and setting a bunch of cards, that could be really powerful. That stops Goki setting up.
Yeah.
But then you got a question: could you not just play the hand traps in a different deck?
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, I think once again we were one of the last tables out on the field. So we're going to call it there for round 3, and we'll be right back with round 4. Catch you guys soon.
You will both get a loss for round 3.